This video is going to show you how to use symmetry by folding and cutting to make a sugar skull. Let's make a grid on our paper. To do this, we are going to fold it. Those fold lines will make a grid. A grid is a way for us to measure on our paper and put things in the right spot. First, you need a normal piece of computer paper. It can be flimsy because it's easier to fold. If it's too thick, it will be hard to fold. First, my paper is vertical, portrait style, and I'm going to start by folding it in half one time vertically. We know this as a hot dog fold. In art terms, this is a vertical fold. One hand holds the paper, the other hand creases. I'm going to do a second vertical fold. The same way, it will be a little more tricky because you have more paper, but one hand holds, the other hand creases. Two folds, and when we open it up, we see 4 strips. I want those same 4 strips going in the other direction to make my grid. So now we're going to fold horizontally. And it gets a little crumpled because of the folds in there, so just try your best. If it's not perfect, that's okay. So we have one fold horizontally, you guessed it, a second fold horizontally, or hamburger style. So now that we did that fold, you did 2 horizontal folds. We open it up and we have a full grid. Now you might notice, since you folded 2 horizontal and 2 vertical, your paper is a little crumpled. A little trick is on the edge of a table, flatten it out on both sides, and now you have a flatter piece of paper. It's okay if it's still a little crumply, it will flatten out as we work. Now we're going to use this grid to make our symmetrical skull. Symmetry is when one thing on one side of your paper is exactly the same as the other side. So our skull shape is symmetrical. Just like our pieces and details in our skull are symmetrical. To do this, we're going to use our grid and start by folding it in half vertically, hot dog style. This middle line is the middle line of our skull. This is our line of symmetry. We're going to use this line and draw our skull shape. There are many different kinds of shapes you can draw for your skull. To start, find the fold. You don't want the other end where the papers are open, or else when you cut your skull, you'll cut it in half. Start on the fold at the top of your paper, and I'm coming out past that second vertical line on my grid and down to the second horizontal line. So you should have passed 2 boxes. That's how we use a grid, as a marker or measuring when we're drawing. Make sure your skull line almost comes all the way out to the open end of your paper. Now, at this point, you can draw your cheekbones or just go right into the jaw. The top part we just drew is the top part of your skull. Now here are some options for skull shape. Maybe you want to come straight in on a diagonal to touch that middle line, and then down and curve around. This will give you a round jaw. Maybe you want your skull shape, even at the top, to be a little more square. And when we come in, we can make it a little more severe, but our jawline is more square. Another option is more round at the top, and when it comes in, we make an extra bump for a cheekbone. So we're stopping at the same place but adding an extra detail before we move to our skull. There are no wrong answers with your skull shape. Now that I have my skull shape, we're going to cut it out. Holding both papers together, use your scissors and cut through both papers on the line that you drew for your skull shape. When you open it up, you will reveal symmetrical sides to your skull shape. We're going to use symmetry again to get the same details inside our skull and have symmetries with our details as well. Our extra lines in our grid are what we are going to use to create symmetry. Fold your paper in half again, and this middle line is the middle line of symmetry for our skull. We are going to put our nose on this skull. So I'm going to find the middle horizontal line, and our nose is going to be a teardrop shape, but only half, because when we cut through it, it will show our line of symmetry, a full shape. If you're drawing a line at the top, make sure you don't cut all the way through the top of the skull. So I'm going down a little bit from the top to make half a shape. Go ahead and add any other details along your middle line that you will eventually cut out. For your mouth, instead of drawing a line, give yourself a shape that you can cut out, like a skinny rectangle. I first started with a horizontal rectangle to make the horizontal part of your mouth. Then I'm adding 2 vertical up and down rectangles that I will cut out later. First, I'm going to cut out the small shapes, making sure I don't cut through the top of my skeleton because I don't want to cut the skull in half, but I'm still cutting on the fold. When we cut on the fold, even though we're cutting half of our shape, our paper is folded, so it will cut a full shape. Now, cutting the mouth, I'm going to cut that horizontal skinny rectangle. It's a little tricky, but cut that out first. You have to move slow so you don't cut your paper in half. Then you can get into your vertical rectangles and cut those out. They're very small, but moving slow will help. Now I'm moving to the other grid lines to show symmetry in my eyes. That second fold from the middle, I'm going to fold both papers, not just the top one. Make sure you're holding on to both papers when you fold it over. Now that fold on the outside is our line of symmetry. You can add a half circle, or if you want to get a little more fancy, maybe you're using a curved line, a zigzag line, whatever shape you want for your eyes. You can even use that line of symmetry, that fold, to draw details under your eyes, like half circles, diamonds, squares, anything. I'm taking a moment to add another detail at the top, and then we're ready to cut. So just like before, you'll cut out along the fold. Go ahead and cut out all your other shapes along that line, and when you open up, voila, you have your symmetry sugar skull.